firstly, just a quick show of hands. How many of you in the room work in a business environment? Okay. All right. And how many of you own your own businesses? Okay, quite a few of you. So for those of you who didn't raise your hands and are employees who work long and hard hours, for the purposes of this conversation, I want you to just imagine that you own the company that you currently work for. Okay? So, how many of you are aware of what your job involves day to day? Right? And for those of you who have your own business, how many of you are aware of what it takes for it to run smoothly and successfully? First off, you will have some kind of overarching vision, okay? And then you'll likely have weekly targets, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly targets, as well as regular check-ins, reviews, and if you have a HR team, likely some kind of training and development program as well. As well as that, you'll often have advisors and consultants come in to help support the business with its strategy. And fun. Right? There'll be some kind of organized fun, team, social bonding time, as well as relationship building with clients. And perhaps most importantly, you also have time off. For those of you who are employed, like something I didn't appreciate until I started running my own business. Now, how many of you know that those are all important things to have a business run smoothly and successfully? But how many of you apply these same things in your lives? Because what I see a lot of working with clients and with my friends and with my peers are people consistently failing to run their own lives as effectively as they run their careers and their businesses. So firstly, personal time. Like, what is that? Most of the time, those things feel more like a tick box exercise. Oh, I'm going to go visit my mom this weekend. Right? You are always on for business. That phone is never far from sight. And you say yes to things that you know deep down that you should have said no to. And then later you kick yourself because it didn't quite go the way that you would have liked. Anyone relate to any of those things? So I'm going to take you back to, I'm going to share a little bit about my personal journey of running my own life. And I'm going to take you back to December 2016. So I'm working full-time in a corporate career at a research agency. And I love the company that I work for. But I'm also working really long hours and taking work home with me. On top of that, I'm also teaching 7 to 14 hours of group fitness classes a week. And because I love personal development so much, I'm also doing a lot of courses and research and coaching diplomas to do for the following year. I was really going for it. Even though I was only sleeping 4 hours a night, I thought I was doing pretty well. You know, that whole you can sleep when you die thing, yeah, I really bought into that. Even though I was exhausted. Until one morning I woke up with a sore throat. And what felt like the start of a cold. So I didn't give it much attention at the time. But throughout the day, I started to find it more and more difficult to speak. And by the next morning, I had completely lost my voice. Now this had never happened to me before. So I initially panicked, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what happens if my voice doesn't come back? But I had teacher friends, singer friends, and trainer friends all say to me, oh, you know, that's normal, it happens sometimes, don't worry about it, your voice will be back. Here's a list of remedies. So I calmed down, until a week later, my voice still hadn't come back. 2 weeks later, still no voice. 3 weeks later, I'm starting to really panic now. During that time, I had to give up over 21 fitness classes, plus all the extra covers I'd agreed to over the Christmas period. And that represented quite a significant loss of income at the time. None of that time was paid for. On top of that, I had to let members down, and I had to let the studio down. They had to find a double cover for me. Now, what would it look like for your life and your business for you to lose your voice for 3 weeks? Or if you're in an industry that doesn't actually use your voice very much, say you're a web developer or a painter, what would it be like to go 3 weeks with a broken hand? What would be the impact on your life and your business? I had another way of expressing myself. Working out physically. At the time, I was training twice a day, up to 12 days in a row, and really loving the time that I spent working out. However, as unhealthy as it was for me to be doing a full-time day job, part-time fitness career, and as well as all my courses, it was also unhealthy for me to be working out to that extent, right? So my body decided it was going to teach me a little lesson, and it got me injured. So I'm lying there at the physio, and she's literally sticking a needle in like my big toe, like right at the tip of my big toe. And then she gets a whole bunch more needles, and she literally sticks them all over my left knee. So for those of you who've had acupuncture before, you'll know what that is. But there's this one needle that just will not go in because there's so much scar tissue all over my knee, and she literally has to like twist this needle to go in. Like, it was not, I mean, I didn't have children yet, but it was not the most pleasant experience of my life. So within the space of about 6 months, I'd lost both my voice and I'd lost my ability to work out. And what that gave me was way too much time to think. Because what I realized was that I'd been using all of those things, I'd been working out that much to avoid spending time up here. And some of you will know it can be a slippery slope if you have way too much time to think, especially if you have not done the work on your mindset, on your beliefs, all of that. So I was forced to go back to the drawing board in a way, because my whole sense of identity was collapsed into how much success I had, how much I achieved, how much I could tell people and brag about all these things that I was able to do, like Superwoman, right? My whole identity was wrapped into that, and I lost all of those things. And suddenly it was a question of who am I? So I ended up going back down to the basics, and it actually represented a real opportunity for me, because what ended up happening is I quit my day job and I started my business, and I became my own boss, thinking that would solve the problem. Right? Those of you who have your own businesses, I know you're laughing right now. And I really thought that was the perfect solution at the time. But what actually ended up happening was that I was so burnt out and exhausted that I spent about a year recovering from how much I'd driven myself down to the ground. Yeah, it was a year. And in that time, I really got to look at how I wanted my life to be, how I wanted my business to be. And I started to design my life the way that I would want my ideal business to run. But before you can do any of that, you've got to look at clearing your space. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm talking about your physical space, your mental space, and your emotional space. So what comes up for you when I ask you the following questions? Let's look at your physical space. How much clutter is there in your home environment and your work environment? How much noise is there in your head? How do you feel physically? And how much stuff do you have unresolved from the past? How many half-finished projects or ideas or conversations with people have you just left there? Because it's not the things that you have coming up on your to-do list that take up and suck up the most energy. It's actually the things that you have unfinished from the past. So I'm not telling you to go back and finish that half-written book that you've lost all interest in. Right? I'm telling you to go back and review all those things that you've left half-finished and have a think about what is it that you still want to do. And if there are things that you still want to do, make a plan, make a new plan, and stop beating yourself up and making yourself feel guilty for all the things that you didn't finish. just to give yourself an excuse to not move forward with things in your life. Right? I was one of these people that used to be like, oh, well, I never finish things. Because I had all that evidence for it. And then, and only then, can you start looking at going back to these points I mentioned earlier and applying these to your life. So, what is the vision for your life? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Because if it's not big enough, you're not going to get out of bed, right? You've got to have something so big that it doesn't even need to be that big, right? It just has to be big for you. That you'll get up and do some of the things that you don't necessarily want to do, but are necessary for your success. And then you want to set some goals. By when do you want to have achieved X, Y, and Z? And then you want to schedule some reviews, and you want to structure this whole thing. As well as time off, scheduling time off. And if you are your own business, this is even more important. You need to create that space for those ideas to come in and land. Even if you don't feel like you're a creative person, like that is necessary time. Fun, well, I don't need to say much more than that. Like, what's the point of doing what you're doing if you're not having fun at least some of the time, right? And then relationships. How much time are you putting into fostering, nurturing the relationships in your life? There's been so much research, as we heard earlier, on how important social groups and interactions are in our life. In fact, there's been a lot of research conducted on this, and findings across a study. This was conducted in 2010 by someone called Julianne Holt-Lunstad at Brigham Young University, and she found that there's a 50% increased likelihood of survival for those with stronger social relationships. As well as something else we've heard earlier, loneliness and the perceived social isolation, it can trigger a response that can lead to illness and premature death. That's how important your relationships are. Investing in your personal development, however that looks, be it via mentors, coaches, online communities, masterminds, whatever it looks like, people with the same or similar goals to you, and advisors, which pretty much fall under the same thing. Right? These are people who can give you that accountability and also see things that you may not necessarily see yourself, or the people closest to you may not be able to see it. Sometimes you need an objective source on the outside to show you things that you can't see for yourself. Now, the work on yourself has to cover 3 main areas. So first off, you've got your mind, your mental health. There's a lot that's been covered in recent years about this topic. Not just how much clutter is there in your mind, but what are some of your beliefs about your ability to do things, your ability to take action on the things that you really want to do? What are some of your beliefs about people? If people say no to you all the time, like, how does that make you feel? Then you've got your body, your physical health, right? So, not only how is your health, how is your sleep? Do you have any idea what your current fitness levels are? Now, there's a lot that's been said about the brain and body connection, and there is actually research to back this up. As recent as 2017, we found that regular physical exercise not only enhances your fitness levels, which we all know already, but it also has a positive impact on brain metabolism. And it reduces the risk of cognitive impairment as well as the risk of dementia into older age. But now there's one thing that often gets left out or treated as a standalone piece, and that's the work on your soul. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, are the things that you're giving your time and your energy to really fulfilling? How much time do you spend away from technology, out in nature, breathing fresh air, reading a book, right? Just really getting down to the basics there. And how much time do you spend getting out of your comfort zone? Again, this is something that we've heard a lot about today. You must be doing this work consistently, all the time, just like building a muscle if you're working out in the gym or going towards a goal. What happens when you reach that goal and you stop? You start sliding backwards, as we all know. So it's so important to keep doing the work. And sometimes it's really difficult to get going. Like, we all know what it's like to get out of bed in the morning some days. Right? And it's something that we call the activation effect. Don't worry, I'm not going to throw a lot of maths and science at you. But essentially what the activation effect is the minimum amount of energy required to cause a chemical reaction. Exactly the same thing that it takes to start a new habit, that 66-day challenge from earlier. But most of all, it's so important to build strong foundations for the house that you want to build. Now, since implementing some of these ideas and tools and strategies, I have experienced better results in my life and my business. And best of all, I've had more time, I've had more energy, and I'm able to give more of myself to others. Right? So today I can focus more on helping entrepreneurs, those in service industries, educators, implement these tools and strategies to avoid burning out before they can really have the impact that they want to make. I'm not saying you're not already doing a great job, I'm saying that there's a gap between where you are now and what's really possible. Now, I'm not one for having many regrets, but if I were to go back to December 2016 and speak to a younger version of myself, I would tell her a few things. Stop running and slow down. Get crystal clear on what you want. And you know what you want, you're just maybe too scared to say it out loud, or you don't think it's really possible. Make a plan, get support, and most of all, prioritize yourself to lay a really strong foundation for the life that you really want.